So a bit of a different one today. Actually, what's going to be happening is I'm going to be commentating my own gameplay to sort of provide feedback and insight as to what I was doing at the time, as opposed to like covering a topic. Ignore the names. This is in fact me playing, so just disregard that. So basically at the start of every game, what I usually do is I actually check the map. And that's the first dead giveaway to figure out where people are moving. And then usually, actually, you just don't really contest mid, especially on this map. It's very easy to get dealt with at mid, especially with half their comp being something that outranges me. In this sort of situation, what I would do is actually wait out for something like that, or I traded for their charger, which is a pretty good trade for most of my team, being, essentially 3 short range, with the only thing on our team having range being our heavy. Then from here, I'm having to just sort of wait out. I actually use a double auto bomb build, which people may have been seeing for quite some time now, and the purpose is just for scouting ahead. Here, I just wait for the Rainmaker to move towards me, and then I get the person who's flanking. I am playing with people I know. Obviously, the names aren't very helpful, but these are all friends of mine. And I just use my inkjet to try and force someone out of position. That's all it's really useful for at that stage of the fight. And here I'm just waiting out their Stingray. I have armor, which allows me to survive a bit of it, but I'm obviously not looking to try and stay in it for very long. In this sort of situation, this would probably be where having the actual comms would also contribute a bit to figuring out what's going on. But at this point, I'm really just scoping out and using my auto bombs to provide callouts to my teammates while we're trying to wait out and sort of gauge what the enemy is looking to do. There, I was trying to engage on their Octobrush, but he moved out. I think they ended up having Ninja Squid, which makes it a little bit trickier to figure out where they're going. But a lot of it is just sort of waiting out the mid-game, waiting for my moment to actually move up here. Because while I can force exchanges, the brush can still force fights and go up on its own. In most situations, I'm not really looking to do that. I'm looking for moments that I can jump in and not trying to force myself into situations that might become very bad very quickly for me, which with their comp, it will become very bad for me very quickly. And then again, I'm just mostly trying to scope out what's ahead, using auto bombs to try and gauge where the splatling is moving, and just sort of watching for someone that's trying to flank. We already have pretty decent control of where we're trying to push the Rainmaker, so I'm just trying to watch to see if anyone's moving past it. And then from here, I'm using my inkjet just to force the splatling out of position. We end up losing the Rainmaker, but this is drawing 2 people's attention away from the Rainmaker, allowing us to actually get the pop again and continuing our push. So while it looks like I might not have been doing anything, realistically, drawing 2 people's attention away makes it easier for us to get the pop. And then here, I just then end up getting the 2 people that I continue to hold their attention. The point that I had for going up there was to then get a better position to punish the people that just dropped down. One of the best things that this weapon can do in a small, confined area like this, where the sort of areas out of spawn here in Wahoo are very small, so having a position up there is very good. Unfortunately, I just so happened to get there as soon as the splatling, or not the splatling, the charger had spawned. So here I kind of messed up. That person obviously saw me when I got caught in a small bit of ink, but the point was I was going to flank around where the Rainmaker was and go from there. Then getting the person that I did see. Unfortunately, clipping ink made him see me as well. And then just sort of keeping tabs on people. There's probably, like, nowadays people might consider this sort of playstyle as like being super, like, scaredy cat. And to a degree it is, but what I'm really doing in this whole game is actually just drawing attention away. The reason why I use the auto bombs or a double auto bomb build specifically is to simply draw attention and keep targets like the splatling and the charger moving. And then that's pretty self-explanatory. I was close to my inkjet, so let me just finish getting it so I can then get rid of the Stingray, one of the highest valued targets to get. And then here, since we're in a situation where we're flying off, I'll just wait for the ink jump or the inkjet landing. And then here I'm getting back into a position where I can watch for the splatling and the charger. Pretty much all I'm really doing for this game is I'm really utilizing my sub to draw attention away from everyone else and try to keep the targets like the splatling and charger occupied so my team can actually make a push. Because being long-range weapons like that, they're going to be the things that single-handedly stop most of our pushes. So if I can draw their attention away and keep them moving with my auto bombs and my inkjets, then I'm getting more value than just trying to run up there and try to kill them myself. It's pushing them away from the objective while making it, giving my teammates more space to move up on their own. And then we just jump in here because we're at a situation where they've got a far amount to go, and we've got plenty of time to do it. So I will jump in. I do have drop roller, which I don't really super jump a whole lot. Some people may have noticed that I don't jump a whole lot, but the drop roller does make super jumping safe. And so basically the whole thing that I was doing in that game was occupying the weapons that stop my team. You'd think something like an Octobrush would struggle against a Splatling and Charger, but with using double auto bomb, the biggest thing it can really do is just draw attention away and just keep them occupied. I don't need to fight them per se, just draw their attention away. Here we are moving on to the next game. Now here, this team, I don't really have to worry about anything like that, as the longest range thing they have is a 96, which is still something that in most situations the Octobrush is still going to beat out. There's very few situations. The 96 would have to have like pretty godly RNG to beat me in a lot of close range fights, and because of that, I was going to just straight up rush him. That was mostly my bad. If I had actually paid attention to the map more, like I had mentioned I do, I failed doing that here. But a lot of my initial rollouts, I spent watching the map to get an idea where people are moving. If I had done that better, I would have known that that splash was there. But unfortunately, I did not, and he punished me. And now it's mostly just about gaining space ahead of my team. There's a lot of good spots for an Octobrush to hold here on main stage. This is actually probably like one of my favorite maps to play Brush on. So the main thing I want to hold is up here on Snipe, or to get up onto their elbow. These are areas where this path right up here is so easy for an Octobrush to control space, and which is what I would have done if I hadn't gotten flanked there. But basically the main thing that I'm trying to do is hold enough space forward, because anything on nothing on their team really contests me in terms of like range. I have equal range, if not like slightly less than most of their comp. So I can go into these situations where I'm much closer than I was playing in the last game. So a lot of this I spend playing a bit more forward than I did the entirety of the last game, and I don't have to worry about like, drawing attention or just like playing a distraction. I can actually take fights with these people. So in this situation, we just don't bother super jumping. Our push is over. It's not going to happen anymore. We're not getting any more points out of this. So I'll just paint up a bit of the map and actually start to move forward. We don't actually control a good chunk of the map. And this is actually something I found pretty early on. You can actually sit in this spot. If you drop from above like I did, you cannot be noticed here, and no one can actually see you drop from there. So I'm just holding this position to see where the enemy is moving, and I'm waiting out for my moment to actually come in without them noticing me approaching. And by doing so, I'm able to stop the Rainmaker and get another person, and nearly get another. And you may notice that I even will still hit clips even though I'm recording. So even if I'm recording, I still press clips sometimes. It's just a habit. This is a situation where I don't really need a contest bid. My teammates are already up there, so I can take a position elsewhere on the map, and I see someone coming over here. So we get rid of them. And now we can start to move back up into the enemy space, because they have 2 down, we have more numbers than they do, and we're starting to get a push going. So now I will start to make my approach back into a position that I want to be in, closer to their spawn, in an area where I'm more likely to assist in the push for real. Now, this is, again, something that was like, it would make more sense if there was the comms here. I originally used my inkjet there because I had heard, like, a teammate, one of the people I'm playing with, had informed me that there was someone on the far right side. So I was going to use my inkjet to try and distract them and kill them. But as I popped my inkjet, they ended up dying to the Rainmaker. So it ended up being worthless. Now, here is actually something interesting. The Splash started to actually throw their Toxic Mist over here to stop me from approaching from here. And it doesn't really work for them, but I mean, they tried. And this is being way overextended. Being that far into the spawn like that, no matter what the situation of the game, that's considered a little bit overextending. So I did get punished for, overextending. But it ultimately didn't matter because in the end we ended up winning anyway. So as a stark contrast to the last game where I was mostly playing distraction, because nothing really on their comp in this game was a nuisance to me, I didn't have to worry about playing distraction. I could just take fights with anything on their team. I could just approach anything on their team because there was really no threat to me on their team. And here, this team, it provides a little bit more of a struggle. Their comp consists of double armor, which historically the Octobrush has always been good against. Octobrush, even from like launch, I was always telling people that Octobrush was like really good against armor comps. Like even back when the Tri-Slosher was super meta, just playing into any sort of ink armor, the Octobrush did it very well. So even this sort of comp didn't really make a whole lot of difference because it's very unlikely that you hit a low range. It is possible. I've had a good number of times where I can hit a low damage range, but basically any sort of damage range from an Octobrush is going to break armor. And so it allows me to take, again, fights with anybody. Because I don't have to be concerned about their ink armor like a few like normal shooters would, I can just freely approach any of them on their team because once again, like the last team, there really isn't anything on them that I have to really be afraid of. Anything on their comp is equal or less range than me, so I can just run and fight them. And then in this sort of situation, like I push this guy because it's a junior. Like a junior, it would take way too long for the junior to effectively kill me. So I can push something like that. If that was the NZAP player, I probably wouldn't have pushed in as deep as I did, just because it's a lot easier for the NZAP to punish me like that. Especially because the NZAP is more accurate than the junior as well. In this situation, I'm mostly just waiting to hear if someone is going up on their snipe and just waiting to see where everyone is moving. Here, I did catch out their junior. I was waiting to maybe see them move up a bit further, but they ended up using their armor, so I just decided to go after them anyway to get their junior out of the play and their main painting weapon out. And I think here I thought someone was flanking, so I was watching the spot, but it ended up they dropped back into mid. But a lot of what I'm doing this whole game is mostly just controlling space and trying to deny ink armors. It doesn't look like I'm doing a whole lot of that, but because of how much damage I do and how easy it is for the Octobrush to break armor, most of what I'm trying to do is just take fights with the juniors or the NZAP to try and break armors or to try to negate any special charge they get. And there I was debating super jumping, but then I saw two people die. So we don't do those. We just swim back in and try to control mid a bit more as we end up, I guess, more or less wiping. And then again, that same sort of trick I had mentioned earlier where you can drop and not be seen. If I had just dropped normally down into that grate, that person probably would have seen me and I probably would have been killed immediately. But because I drop holding that wall and then go into that corner like that, I end up not being seen. And again, just scoping things out with the auto bombs. The main purpose, like I see a lot of people consider auto bombs not really good because they don't kill. I don't approach auto bombs as something that's lethal. I use them more so as intel than I do trying to kill anybody. If it kills somebody, that's good, but most of the time I'm just throwing auto bombs to see if people are there or people are moving. And then since we're not really pushing, there really isn't any real incentive for me to move forward, so I'm just waiting to see if the enemy team approaches us, as we're just waiting out and trying to see what they're trying to do rather than trying to run at them. We're seeing if they're trying to come at us first. There, I could have gotten that tri-slosher if I had backed up a little bit more. There was someone I was aware that they were there, but failed to effectively take that fight. So here, this is something that I usually tell people to be careful about doing. I was repeating my rollout multiple times. Like, I kept going that way, and I tell people to be very careful about how many times you repeat your rollout just because you become predictable by doing that. But the only real excuse that I would have for why I was repeating it is that it was working. But realistically, you should do what I say, not as I do. Repeating your rollouts constantly does make you predictable. And as you start to play at higher levels, you will notice that people will start to watch those spots. If they were more aware of like the positions I was moving into and how many times I'd done that, they would have been more aware of that. But this was just another example of a game where I could just take fights with anybody. The vast majority of my gameplay usually relies on the enemy comp, and I always scope out what the enemy comp has and base my playstyle off that. If they have range, I play distraction. If they don't, then I can just take fights. If people are interested in more videos like this, let me know. But that is pretty much it. That's all I have for today, so thank you all for watching.